Welcome to episode 234 of Girl Take the Lead, where each week we explore womanhood and leadership. And I'm your host, Yo Canny. Today, Laura Zavelson, Gen X, joins us, and she has the best biography description. She's a corporate finance escapee turned serial entrepreneur, former professor of entrepreneurship, and fairy godmother for new business ideas. Her videos, articles, and programs are designed to be easy to follow roadmaps to financial stability, flexibility, and freedom. So all her clients never, ever have to be out there looking for a job again. And I wish I had known about her on the way up I had in the ranks. She offers us so much wisdom about pivoting our careers and our businesses. Here are some of the topics we cover: the escape plan, focus area, and poison ivy. All great marketing approaches for sure. Enjoy the listen. Here you go. Hi, Laura. Welcome to Girl Take the Lead. And thank you for joining us today to have this wonderful conversation.
I'm so happy to be here.
Could you begin first by introducing yourself to our audience?
I would be happy to. So, my name is Laura Zavelson, and I call myself a corporate escapee turned serial entrepreneur. I was also a professor of entrepreneurship at UNC Chapel Hill and Elon University. And for about a decade, I worked almost exclusively with early stage tech companies, helping them generate early revenue, kind of positioning themselves so they could raise money. But a few years ago, I did a big pivot, and now I help Gen X women who have been laid off, pissed off, pushed out, or burned out by corporate build businesses as coaches or consultants.
Mhm. And I understand that you have an escape plan.
I do. So, let me tell you a little bit about how I got here. So, before the pandemic, I was actually pushed out of a corporate job myself. They shut down the whole program. So, I found myself back in the job search. And I went on a few interviews, and I was over 50 at the time. And the last one was a job I was very qualified for. It was to build a venture accelerator inside a company. And I sit down with I get to, it's a series of interviews, and I get to the one with the CFO, and everybody at the company is 30, but this guy is about my age. And he asked me about a previous role that I had had at a venture-backed ed tech company. And I told him I was the CFO, COO of that company. And he looks at me and he says, "Well, are you even qualified to do that work?" Now, I should have walked out, but I didn't because I was so shocked. I couldn't even believe that he would even ask me that question. He clearly had not read my resume, he didn't know anything about who I was, and was making a bunch of assumptions based on my gender and my age.
Mm.
So, anyway, I'll never forget it. I was driving home on the Embarcadero in San Francisco, and I stopped at a light, and I knew that's it. That is the last interview I am ever going on. And
Mhm.
that was February of 2020. And so when the pandemic hit, all of a sudden I started noticing that all of these women my age were getting laid off,
Mhm.
talented, experienced women. And as we develop these conversations over time, they'd be looking for jobs and basically getting the cold shoulder, like just crickets. And
Mhm.
as I talked to more and more of them, I realized what I wanted to do. I wanted to give them back control over their time and their potential to create impact and their financial opportunity by helping them start a business.
Mm.
And I believe one of the easiest businesses to start for people who are mid-career, Gen Xers at this point, um, when you have expertise and experience, it's to become a coach or a consultant. So the Gen X escape plan is a three-step roadmap that gives you a process where you can start exploring that option.
And I guess, for the listeners who aren't Gen Xers, but um, it's an escape plan I think anybody can use. And so many of our younger generations have side hustles that could become bigger. So I think your escape plan speaks to perhaps all generations.
Well, that process will absolutely work for anybody. So the deal is that I developed it based on my work when I was working with venture-backed companies. So it's an academically researched, used by tons of accelerators process of going about figuring out um, about that. It's more about validating your ideas and how to do that before you just go out there and hang up a shingle and start going.
Mhm, mhm. And what are the aspects of it?
Well, I think the first thing to do is to try to find your focus area.
Mhm,
And I think what happens is that, again, most people just start marketing too early. They find an idea and they've kind of fallen in love with it. And they go out there and they say, I'm going to start this business. And the problem is that in if you can't just have an idea and start a business around that. The best practice here is to find a problem and actually fall in love with a problem instead of the idea.
mhm,
So I call it starting with a focus area. Um, and that's a person plus a problem. So I think a lot of people might start with, okay, I have this idea, and here are some people I really want to help. And so they go online or whatever, and they find out about this. Your ideal customer avatar, I think is what, a lot of people call it. And so they spend a lot of time like diving into the demographics of this person. Do they have pets? What coffee do they drink? Where do they shop? And I think that's great and it's really important, but it's not enough. It doesn't go far enough. So you need a
mhm,
person plus a problem because people buy things to solve problems.
mhm. So, as an old-time marketer, somebody who was in the field for a long time, it always seemed like you needed to understand too the dynamics of what you're operating in. Like you're saying, the problem you're solving, the issues that people have, that they're looking for, when you're making an offer, whatever that offer is. Does that sort of sound right?
Yeah, 100%. The thing is that I think there's a lot of people who are sort of, they think I'm going to put this service out there. And I'm going to let people know that I'm here and I have this service. But it doesn't really provide people a compelling reason to hand over their credit card.
Mhm.
And let's be honest, if we're in business, we need people to buy things from us.
Right, right.
Otherwise it's just a
Yeah,
hobby.
yeah.
So the best way to get things to people to buy things from you is to solve a problem that they already have, and
Mhm.
preferably to solve a problem that matters to them.
Yeah. I'm thinking about my business now, being a podcaster and having my online store, and, um, you're helping me, think a little bit more clearly about the problem, and perhaps our problem statement is that, um, leadership is missing certain voices around the table. And
Yeah,
that's one thing that we need to offer here on Girl Take the Lead.
and I would actually maybe push that one step further and say that there are voices missing from around the table, and that matters because and we know that there's data out there. I mean, I'll give you my perspective, and I know that you have a perspective because it's your show. I mean, you're the
Yeah.
one who's brought these multi generations together to start having these conversations. So, what is the outcome of that? I mean, certainly the data shows that the more diverse voices we have when we're making decisions, the better decisions that come out of that from a business
Mhm.
perspective. Businesses actually show more profitability. The more different perspectives you get in the
Yeah.
mix.
And more creativity, I think, and problem solving and finding solutions and finding your way. I gotta say, that, it's gotta be the same for most entrepreneurs that you get started down a certain lane and then it just sort of takes hold and starts to, get, yeah, your focus was this, and then it takes a life. And, I'm just wondering too, you mentioned something about poison ivy. What is that about?
Well, so when you find a person that you want to help or an audience that you want to help. And you go to try to identify that problem. It's likely that that target audience has a lot of problems.
Mhm.
And so, where should you focus, especially if it's early on? And this kind of goes back to the escape plan mentality. If you're at ground zero, and you have a number of different problems you can solve, I would pick the itchiest problem that you could find. And that's why I call it the poison ivy problem, because people can't ignore whatever this problem is, right? You want the problem that they think about all the time and that they can't wait to get rid of, because that means that if you put a solution in front of them, they are going to be very quick to raise their hands and say, yes, please help me get rid of this problem. Please help me get rid of my poison ivy. And so
Right.
that's where I got the idea for poison ivy problems, is that I see a lot of new business owners solve problems, but they're problems that people can let wait.
Mm.
And if you pick that kind of a problem, it's not that you can't have a business around it, but if you're trying to gain momentum quickly, if you're just getting started, sometimes it's nice to build up an audience or a group of clients first, and then you can solve some of those less urgent problems for them.
Mm.
But if you want the fastest path to revenue, it's usually along the lines of that poison ivy problem.
Wow. Well, the urgency has always been one for marketers, to look at like what you can do to have someone take the action quickly and immediately. Um, so I get that. That makes total sense. Yeah.
It's not only the urgency. I mean, yes, as marketers, we can create urgency around getting someone to make the decision. But I'm saying, like, even go one step farther and make it a decision that they were already dying to make.
Oh,
So, we can add urgency on top, and that's even better. That's like icing, right?
uh-huh.
But like the if you focus on a problem where people are already agitated, so you don't even have to, like, you have to do
Right.
less
Right.
work. Like, you're almost reducing the amount of marketing that you need to do because they're out there looking for a solution.
Right. Well, I guess too, I can remember early on in my career being told that we're trying to identify a need that somebody has that they don't know they have, and you're identifying it for them and, having them take the action to purchase or to, I don't know if that still holds. Does that still hold?
You can take that path. It's a harder path. So again, we kind of we want to go with. I mean, the only analogy I can come up with right now is a golf analogy. you
Mm.
you want to hit the ball that's the closest to the hole. So because the closest to the sail. So your if you could set up a dream business, it would be one where people already know that there's a problem, and potentially they all may already know there's a solution to the problem, and they're just solution shopping, in which case all you have to do is raise your hand and say, I have a solution that's better or different, and they're yours.
Uh-huh.
But I do think you're absolutely right that list of beliefs that we have to shift for people to make purchasing decisions 100% still exists, right? So they have to know they have a problem, and then they have to they have to identify the problem, and then they become problem aware, right? And then
Uh,
they become solution aware, and then they make a purchase. And
yeah.
the thing is that if you can build your first product, okay? So your business can be ultimately broader. That's how we grow a business.
Hmm.
But if your first product, your first solution can be for someone who is already problem aware, like someone who has poison ivy, they are darn aware that they have that problem, right?
Right. Right.
Then you are going to get those initial sales that much faster. You're just going to have an easier path. If you pick your first product or your first solution as something where you've got to actually convince someone they have a problem, it's just a longer path to the
Longer
sale.
path. And probably more expensive because you've got to communicate and spend money to get that message out there.
Yeah, and just a longer time, right? And
Yeah.
time and money, basically the two sides of the same coin.
Yeah. Do you think that social media complicates us from finding the focus area and our target audience? And they're so
Well,
different. Like I'll tell you from a podcast perspective, there are certain themes that I know will resonate with an Instagram audience for example, different themes for the LinkedIn audience, and even more different ones for YouTube. And I kind of think it complicates business and your
I think
opportunities.
I think it does. So here's here's the thing. I think foundationally, the problem you solve is the problem you solve.
Mhm.
And the audience you solve it for is going to have certain let's see what's the word I want. The audience you solve it for is going to have certain challenges that they
Mhm.
want to get solved. So there's a way to talk to them, and you
Mhm.
got to figure out those talking points.
Right.
And so I think figuring out those talking points maybe is made a little easier by social media because hopefully someone is out there complaining and you can understand the problem. I will say the gold standard for understanding the problem is to actually talk to the people that you want to work with, right?
Right.
If you really, really want to get into the minds of the people that you want to serve and you want to create a product for them that they are ready to buy, your best bet is to go out and talk to them. And we're talking 20-minute conversations. I think if you're a coach or a consultant and you're a solo kind of person, we're probably talking 5 to 7 conversations, maybe 10. Now, if you were a
Mhm.
corporation trying to make a new product, I'd say, no, you got to go out and talk to 50 people, right? But
Thousands.
yeah, thousands, right? Exactly. But, you know, as a solo person just looking for a problem to solve and trying to understand where that poison ivy is for a group of people, it's not a lot of conversations and is so worth the time. But I will say that exploring that, social media and the fact that people put so much of their lives online now, that part is easier. But I will say reaching people is harder because
Yeah.
of social media because we are so fragmented. It
Yeah.
used to be, and again, I'll generationally, I'm an Xer. So I remember when there were only 3 TV stations. You
Yep.
had 1 or 2 local radio stations, you had 3 national television stations, and you had newspapers,
Mhm.
and that's how you got to people. And now, oh my gosh, there's thousands and thousands of channels. And so finding your people, if it's not clear, like if they don't all congregate on one channel, and they rarely do, then how do you get your messaging to them
Yep.
on these various channels? And you're right. I think the way people absorb information on the different social media is different.
Yeah.
Instagram is so visually oriented and people are
Yep.
scrolling, scrolling, scrolling. LinkedIn, they're probably looking for people that they know. Um, I do think as business owners, if we try to create media or if we try to create messaging specifically for each of those channels, that then becomes the full-time job. And I'm not sure that any of us want to do that.
Yeah.
So I think at some point you kind of have to go with greatest good for the greatest number. I'm going to reach as many people in this with this message as I can on these
Yeah.
channels. And
Yeah.
and again, if you're solving that poison ivy problem, it's much easier for people to put up their hands and go, oh wait, that's me.
Yeah. Mm. But one of the things you also talk about is a success squad. And I think I have one, but I'd love to hear a little bit more about that from you.
Well, there's 2 reasons I think a success squad is important, and there's a couple different kinds of people you want to have on yours, right? And so the first one is that I think what a lot of people don't realize is that the skill sets and the experience and all the things that are going to make you a great coach or consultant are not the same skills that's going to make you a great business owner. And so I think realizing that early on and finding some people who can help you fill in those gaps about how to do it, how to grow a business from nothing.
Mhm.
That those are some really good people to have on your side. People like you who have marketing experience. If you don't know how to do that, get some people who know how to do it on your side because it's a skill. It's for
Mhm.
sure a skill. And there's a lot of, you don't know what you don't know for sure. I think the second reason we need success squads, especially as women, is that if you've never worked alone before, if you're used to collaborating, if you love collaborating, if you're used to working on teams, what you might find is that becoming an entrepreneur can be lonely and that you really miss that collaboration and you really miss having people to bounce things off of and just, so you don't go down the rabbit hole, right? You need some cheerleaders too. And so I think that bringing those people into your success squad is super, super important. But we're really lucky that women are smart enough to realize that we need each other and that there's a lot of organizations for women entrepreneurs, whether it's co-working situations or whether it's just online, in person. Groups of women entrepreneurs have realized that we need each other, and a lot of people have created communities where you can go to kind of get some of those cheerleaders and people who you want to collaborate with.
Yeah. I do think it's super important, especially if you're in a field where there isn't a lot of, um, like there's certain outlets like retail where you can kind of know how they work and how they operate. But things that are like a podcast, like, okay, this is new ground, like what's happening and what's this about and how do you grow it and do you want to grow it and how complicated is this thing? And I have found that I have a squad myself, and there's six of us that meet monthly to just sort of put problems out there that we're facing and go, well, how are you dealing with this? And what do you think about this new change? And, are you doing video? Are you doing, what's happening on Instagram and, what's happening on LinkedIn? But it's so important, I think, especially when you're in an area that you're inventing that
Oh, for
isn't well
sure.
established.
Yeah, and the pace of change is crazy. I
Yeah.
mean, the Instagram just changed the the format of their posts. So, and Canva showed up, oh, here's the new format. But if you weren't even looking, if you weren't paying that much attention, it's like, oh, wow, they changed that. So the change is so fast. So yeah, that's another great use of your success squad. And you were saying, and you're all podcasters?
Yeah. We're all podcasters and we all kind of talk it out. It's just, I think it's when somebody understands your world, for a moment and definitely can be that, keep going, keep doing it. Like maybe pivot and take on something else, but um, just it just helps, I think, us all navigate those changes.
Well, and what's working now, right?
Yeah.
Because again, the pace of change, what was working in 2024, there's just so much change going on in the world anyway. And of
Yeah.
course, that's going to impact what we're all doing in our businesses, regardless of what that business is.
Yeah. So, are there any other insights that you would like to leave with our listeners? Maybe some of our younger generation. I think we've given some great thoughts here, but is there anything else there that you see, Laura, that you think you want to pass along?
I would say if you're younger, if you're earlier in your career, if you find something that you like to do, take the time to build experience and expertise in an area because that becomes such a valuable asset. And I think that entrepreneurship is not for everyone. And a lot of women have incredible opportunities inside corporations. But if you ever find yourself laid off or pushed out, or you just want more control over your time or the impact, like if there's things that really matter to you, then you can take that experience and expertise and leverage that into something that's your own. And I
Mhm.
think having that option is a great, just a great, if it's not going to be plan A, it's a great plan B.
Yeah, definitely. I heard something, or I think I read it. Somebody posted, I don't remember exactly who it was that posted it, but it was like, don't follow your passions, but follow your talents. And they hit me kind of like, whoa, well, wait a minute. I thought we were always supposed to find our passions and our purpose and follow those. But I think that's kind of a cool thing to think about, right? That the talents that we have are like, if I think about my marketing talents, I would say I was a marketer from early on, that I could look at something on television and kind of begin to think like, oh, they're trying to influence us to buy this or something. And I was doing that really young. So I had a particular talent in observing behavior, right? And then followed that into psychology and wanted to understand more about what made people do that. And I could say that that is definitely one of my talents of being able to observe. I mean, what do you think of this idea of follow your talents rather than your passion?
Actually, I love that because I think that sometimes people get I think there is a lot of messaging out there about go find your passion and you'll never work a day in your life or whatever it is. But the thing is, if you're a philosopher, perhaps there's not a lot of profitability there. And so I think what you can do is if you can find a way to use your talents to incorporate your passion, that there's you can actually blow open a whole new hole of opportunity there. I was thinking about this recently. Like if you're, let's say you're an artist, right? And you're or a creativity coach. Let's just say that, that's your passion. But let's say that you have a talent for bringing people together. Well, then is there a way that you could take that creativity that you have and bring it to team building? Like, I just
Yeah.
think there's when you think of it like that, about like following your talents and then also thinking about how can I bring what I'm passionate about into it? Because the passion will probably keep you going
Yes,
when
longevity,
things get
right?
hard.
That will probably can morph into other things and give you some longevity to it. But
Yeah,
I thought that was rather good
that
too.
I
Yeah.
like that a lot.
Well, Laura, I love talking with you. I mean, it's so fun to talk to somebody about, what your observations are and your insights are. And how can our listeners follow you and you know, learn more about you?
Well, the best way to find out more about me is to you can type it right into Google or you can put it into the search bar. Laura Zavelson, Laura, Z as in zebra, A, V as in victory, Elson. So I'm the only one, but that's how you can find my website, laurazavelson.com. You can also find me as Laura Zavelson on YouTube. And I do have a video podcast. It is called The Gen Expert Show, and it is specifically for Gen X women who are thinking about pursuing a new opportunities in coaching and consulting.
That's so cool. So, Miss Laura, what would you tell your 20 something self today?
Ooh, that's such a good question. I would say take risks early in your career.
Mm.
Try different things. You do not have to be a VP by the time you're 30. There is time. Um, you know, I learned how to sail in my 20s, and my first job after I got my MBA, I got a call from somebody who I had gone to sailing school with, and they needed extra crew to deliver a boat down to Antigua, and I didn't go. I was afraid to even ask, and I really just should have said, "Who cares?" and asked, and if they said no, I probably should have just gone to Antigua. That's one of those things where you think, "What? I didn't have much to lose. I was 26 years old. Go to Antigua."
I can relate. I must have been a senior in high school, and I had the opportunity to go to Mallorca
Ooh.
for some kind of um, class or something, but I chose instead to go to Campfire Girl Camp. be a counselor. And I got to tell you, sometimes I'll be watching something on TV about Mallorca and I'll be going, maybe I should have gone to Mallorca. But hey, camp counselor was part of the leadership path. It was
And
fallen.
that's the thing though, I think we feel like we feel like we have to get there so quickly. At least I felt like I had to get
I
where I
did
was
too.
going so quickly, and I was definitely, overachiever, kind of person. And looking at it back from this side, I say, "Oh, you have time. You have time. Take some risks. Do some
Yeah.
stuff that everybody says that's a dumb idea. Just go ahead, do it. Just do it.
Yeah.
You can
But then I
you have
did do
time to
some
come back
scary
from it,
things.
you know?"
I think so. Like when I think back now, I just decided to go to New York and do my career in New York, and I just went, what the hell? I know nobody. I'm going to go do this. I moved from LA to New York and had a wonderful 11 years there. And, um, but I thought I was only going for two.
New York has a way of doing that to you,
I
you
know.
know?
Pulls you in. Oh, well, such a great conversation. And I wonder, did you get a chance to go to our online store? Did anything speak to you there? Any
Oh, I
card or
did.
gift?
And I have to tell you, they are all beautiful. You are so creative. They're just incredible. So I actually, I don't normally think of myself as a crowd follower, and it says this is your best seller, but I love the champagne card. First of all, because champagne is my favorite and because it says celebrate. But I
Yeah.
also think, like, I'll wrap it all up back to our conversation that I think when you have your own business, actually, I think this about life in general. I really do.
Hmm.
You got to celebrate the little things.
Yeah.
Like, yay, I had a great conversation with Yolanda today, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or, yay, I put out, I got 3 reels done for Instagram. Like, you have to celebrate the little stuff because
Yeah.
if you don't, you can really get in a cycle of this isn't going well, or I could have done that better, or whatever. And so I think, in your business or in your life, oh, it was a beautiful sunset today, right?
Hmm.
Have a glass of champagne, celebrate that. And if you can
Yeah.
have that glass of champagne with a friend, then that's even better.
I agree. I agree. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that with me. I appreciate that and with our listeners. So thank you again. And it's been such a pleasure, Laura. And I wish you continued success,
Well,
really.
thank you so much. This has been so much fun, and I just love talking to you too.
Thank you for listening today, and we sure hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please leave us a comment wherever you listen to your podcasts. Tell a friend about us. Join our public Facebook group, Girl Take the Lead, or visit our website, girltaketheleadpod.com. We also have a YouTube channel where your subscription would be appreciated. Once you're on YouTube, search at Girl Take the Lead. And you can find a video of this episode on YouTube Music or on Spotify. Some of my favorite quotable moments from this episode were most people start marketing too early. They find an idea and fall in love with it. The problem is you can't start a business with just a good idea. The best practice is to find a problem and fall in love with that rather than the idea. Oh, boy, that was so good. Another one was the best way for someone to buy from you is to solve a problem they already have and preferably to solve a problem that matters to them. And if you're at ground zero and have a lot of problems your business could solve, pick the itchiest one to solve. A lot of business owners solve problems that people can let wait. Mm. Here are 3 takeaways. One of the best pivots you can make mid career is to become a coach or consultant. The GenX escape plan is a 3-step roadmap that gives you a process so you can start exploring that option. The process will work for anyone. It's about validating your ideas before you go out and start a new business. 2, the first thing to do is to find your focus area, which is a person plus a problem because people buy things to solve problems. Just announcing a service or product may not be compelling enough for someone to buy. And three, it's likely when you go to find your target audience that they have a lot of problems. You want to pick the problem for your business to address that they think of all the time and they can't get rid of. If you put a solution in front of them for the itchiest problem, they will want to get rid of it. It's like poison ivy. That can be the fastest path to revenue. Our next guest is Elizabeth White, an agile and coffee aficionado with a passion for people and transformation. She also has a book that just launched. She has spent the past 15 years guiding organizations on incredible change, focusing on continuous improvements within leadership, culture, people, and processes. And her book is titled People Do Change. We had the best conversation concentrating around emotions, false narratives, and women-led change. It's a juicy one, so for sure, please join us again. Thanks for being here and talk to you soon. Bye.